So here, let's start these are the Maimorim the Rebbe said after the Rebbe suffered the heart condition. So the Rebbe said Maimorim, this was in year Tavshin Lamed Ches. And the Rebbe didn't come out. He stayed in his room, but he gave the mimer from the room. And they had a microphone by the Rebbe and the speakers in the big shul. And Motzei Shabbos, of course, the Rebbe didn't bring on Motzei Shabbos, but Motzei on Shabbos, meaning on Motzei Shabbos, they would set up in the Rebbe's room, and we would hear in the shul. So this is the mimer, Motzei Shabbos Parshas Noach Bechedroi in his room. The Rebbe gave this in his room. H'tavshin Lamed Ches, and the mimer is Mayim Rabim lo Yוכלו לכבות האהבה ונהרות lo ישטפוה. So that the great waters, Pasuk in Shirashirim, cannot extinguish the love, and the rivers cannot flood it. The Rebbe will explain what it means, the Mayim Rabim, what it means, the flood, and what it means, lo yishtafua, as the Rebbe will explain in this Maimer. But so it says here in the note, Motzei Shabbos na Parshas Noach Bechedro in his room Tov Lamed Ches, that later on, I think this was published. Trying to think when this was published, but this was published right then. Let me see what it says over here. It was published in Kuntris Mוצאי Shabbos Parshas Noach, and it was published Zayin Mar Cheshvan. So a little bit later, in the 7th of Mar Cheshvan, that's when they published it. So that's the Cheshvan over here. Okay, so let's do the Maimer itself. The Maimer is Mayim Rabim lo Yוכלו לכבות האהבה ונהרות lo ישטפוה gomer. The great waters, they cannot extinguish the love. There is a love, and usually water extinguishes fire. The love, talking about the love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the love to Hashem is a fire, but all of the great waters cannot extinguish that. That's a fire which is so deep and so strong in the person that, notwithstanding that there is Mayim Rabim, that there is lots of waters, lo Yוכלו לכבות האהבה, they cannot extinguish the love of a Yid to Hashem. And further, ונהרות lo ישטפוה gomer, and rivers cannot flood it. So what are these two things? First saying great waters, and then talking about rivers. Basically saying the same idea, that notwithstanding all the different challenges that a person faces, yet the love remains intact, and the rivers cannot flood it. So he says, so we find in the Maimorim of our teachers, our leaders, that is the Rabbeim. So we find in the Maimorim, Shemayim Rabim heim kol tirdes haparnose v'hamachshoves shebeinyonei olam hazeh. That the great waters is talking about all the tirdes, the preoccupation with one's livelihood. Person is full with preoccupation, his livelihood, and all the thoughts, machshavas, shebinyonei olam hazeh, which are in worldly matters. He's very much involved. These thoughts keep the person constantly preoccupied and busy, and he's worried. But still, notwithstanding that he has all these various different distractions, the imkolze, and still, lo Yוכלו לכבות האהבה המסותרת שיש בכל נפש מישראל. They cannot extinguish, they cannot put out the hidden love which exists in every Jewish soul. Even though on a revealed level, it seems that they take over the revealed life of the person's machshava and preoccupation is with his livelihood, but the Ava Mesuteres, the hidden love that every Jew possesses, that they cannot take over. What does it say in Nehoris lo yishtafua again? So it already says, what is the Nehoris? Rivers cannot flood it. So that means shagam kasher machshavas hanal hein matrides b'yoser, even if those thoughts are very much occupying you and they trouble the person is very troubled, very worried about all these things. And that's compared to a river, because a river flows. Could be some water that is collected, that is stationary. There's water, a river is that flows. So that means that these thoughts and these worries that the person faces, they're on a very constant, and they're flooding him, they're constantly running. Shagam kasher machshavas hanal, even when the above mentioned thoughts, heim matritois b'yoser, they're very much disturbing the person, they disturb him a lot. Ad to the extent shein b'shoy titois b'merutza bitmidus b'li hafsek klal, that they float fast, quickly, constantly, without any interruption. That's why we compare it to a river, that it's always running, constantly. There's no break. The worries are constantly burning. This is compared to Hanahoris, this is compared to the rivers. Shenoivim Tomid B'li Hefsik. They are constantly flowing. There is no interruption. V'naidi v'ozli b'shetev godel. And also they move and they go with a big wave, with a big storm, with flooding. They're going very strongly. So even though the person's preoccupations and his worries are occupying him and they're running constantly, that's added with Nahoris, not just Mayim Rabim, stationary water, but Nahoris that are continuously disturbing the person's peace, and they're continually preoccupying him and keeping him worried, and still, Mikol Mokoim, Lo Yishtafua L'Ha'ava. Still, they cannot flood that love. Yוכלו לכבותו, and they are not able to extinguish that blood, that love. They cannot extinguish it. The not lo yuchol lechabes and not lo yishtafua. They cannot disturb that. So what does it mean? The Rebbe is going to explain the preoccupation of the parnosa. So the Rebbe says that in the truth, a person should only involve in his livelihood his external powers, his actions. He should do work, what he needs to do. As the Rebbe will say soon, even his mind that he needs to, but only to the extent necessary for what he needs to do. But b'chlal, a person's mind should be reserved just for holy things, for the study of Torah and knowing Hashem. So that's why we call it the troubles of Parnosa, because the person shouldn't really be troubled. It should really be only an external act that he does for Parnosa, but not that they should really disturb him. Base. So let's look inside. To explain the language We call it the preoccupation, the tirdes of the parnasa, the troubles of the parnasa. Hineksiv, behold, the pasuk says, "Yegia kapecho kitoichel." The pasuk says, "When you eat, the efforts of your hands." The verse, the Mishnah continues in Pirkei Avos to say, "Ashrecha v'toivlach." You're lucky; it's good to you. But it says in the pasuk, it says. The pasuk brought down over there in the Pirkei Avos. It says, "Yegia kapecho kitoichel." So specifically, it says the efforts of your hands. That means that only your hands, your external, your work should be involved in toichal, in making your parnasa. What you do, hadiyuk bazeh. So it's known the specific language over here. It says Yigia kapecho dafke, only the efforts of your hand. Avolo yigia samoyach v'halev, but not the efforts of the brain, of the heart. That you should not involve. Yigia kapecho, your hands. V'hainu. So what does it mean? You have to get parnosa, you have to get in a natural way. That's the Eibishter set up. We don't get the manna from the heavens. We need to work behind it. Gam asher mitzad zeh shehashefa ba'olam hazeh nimsheches derech levush hateva. Even though, because the flow in this world extends by means of a natural garment, the way Hashem gives in this world is through nature, the garment of nature. So therefore, you need to work. Tzorich liyas asiya, so you need to do something because that's the nature garment. Shebozeh tislabish hashefa shel lemayla. In that work, that flow of above will dress up. So you need to make a garment, because that's the way the Eibishter gives the shefa in this world, through a garment of nature. Ukemeshe kasuv, like the pasuk says, "Obeirachecha Hashem elikecho b'chol asher taseh tafke." It says Hashem, your God, will bless you, but it says right away in all that you do. It doesn't say Hashem will just bless you and give it to you, but Hashem will bless you in all that you do. So the pasuk specifically indicates that there needs to be taseh, you need to do taseh dafke, specifically taseh that you do. But to the extent, so it's all in nature. Sometimes nature requires hard work, not just enough to do it. Sometimes, mitzad goydel hahelem v'haser, because there is such a great block and obscurity that we don't comes through the gashmis, through the teva. Tzrichim gam leyigia. You also need to effort. So we know when you do in this world, you need to do a levush teva, you need to do, and sometimes you got to work very hard, takes a lot of effort. Still, the pasuk says, Yegia kapecha, that if you're going to use Yegia, you need effort, is kapecha, mekom. And still, ein tzarich lahasig ba'asiyah zu, you don't have to occupy in this doing what you're doing for parnosel. B'chol asher tas, in this tas, ki im rak es hakoiches achitzonim shaloi, only the person's external powers, which is yigia kapecha, the efforts of your hands. Now, it doesn't mean only hands, but it means it represents the external powers of the person. Kapayim, the hands, v'shadei evodim hachitzonim, and the other external limbs but not the inner powers. But not the inner and elevated powers, which is in the mind and heart. Ki koiches elu tzrichim liyos mukdoshim l'shamish es koinei. These powers need to be sanctified just to serve Hashem. The upper koiches that the person has, his mind and his heart, they need to be dedicated. They need to be sanctified to just serve Hashem. L'shamish es koinei. That's the purpose of creation, was to serve Hashem, not the work. He has to do work because he has to eat. That's the way David set it up. But the goal is to serve Hashem. Now, the reality is that sometimes we need to use our brains for the job that we're doing. That's part of the doing. But you should only use the amount of intellectual power necessary specifically to do the work, not addition. So it says, "V'hagam shemikivon sha'ashefa mis'alem u'mistatir b'levushei hateva," since that the shefa, the flow, blocks and obscures in the garment of nature, you need to use sometimes your intellect for the necessary for your business. So we can't say l'chayra, you should not use your seichel at all. Can't just do asiyah. Sometimes it requires some intellectual input. So so then you just do what is necessary absolutely for doing. But not to do it in a way of effort by plotting and tricks and all kinds of manipulations, just Yigia, effort, which means effort would mean to use your brain to figure and to drey. That's not what a person should use his mind and his heart for. Only what he needs to do for the business. Ubefrat, especially, it doesn't help really the person's own tricks, because why? Shebirchas havaya hi tashir. It is Hashem's blessings that make you rich. So what is the purpose in doing these extra tricks and these extra conniving and trying? Because the Eibush is bracha. And the business is merely a garment for Hashem's blessing. The garment, who gives him the blessings? Who gives him parnosa? The Eibishter. The Eibishter wants us to make a levush, a garment for it. So therefore, why is he going to make tricks with that garment? It's the Eibishter that gives the blessing. It's not that his business is the source of his livelihood, God forbid. So b'meila, you shouldn't really be too much plotting and conniving in your business either. How do you move on? So it's understood. Since everything comes from the Eibishter, shebedugmas halevushim bepashtus, similar to garments, literally, clothing that a person wears. Hamarbe belevushim lahedif meuma, one who adds more garments doesn't make it any better. On the contrary, sometimes too much levushim. If your garments are too big, too long, you trip over them. It can sometimes ruin more than do good. So you don't need too many levushim. Too many levushim could actually take away and distract. So that's why we call it B'zehu diuk haloshin, and this is the specific language that he says. This person that we're talking about, Mayim Rabim, Lo Yuchlu Lechabes Ha'ava, we're talking about Tirdes HaParnosa. He is preoccupied with his living, which means with his livelihood. We're talking about a person that does not live by this cheshbon that is the Eibishter's brachas, and he's just doing his work as a keli, but he thinks that is the parnasa is more mind, and the more things he will do, he will be able to be more successful, and he's preoccupied. That's why he says he's talking about tirdas haparnosa. So here we have a person who's preoccupied with his parnosa. The agam shu b'matzav nomuch, so that although he's in a low level, sheyesh le tirdas haparnosa, that he has troubles of parnosa, shezeh mare. So why does he have these troubles of parnosa? This points to the fact that he does not reflect properly on his own. He doesn't realize why is he preoccupied. So that shows that he's on a level that he does not reflect properly. Shebirchas Hashem, hitashir, that it's Hashem's bracha that makes you rich. He doesn't do that. That's why he's preoccupied. Had he figured it out, lived by it, then he wouldn't be so protrude. He wouldn't be so worried. He wouldn't be so preoccupied. But because he didn't figure it out, so we're talking about a person who's invested in his livelihood, so he has the tirdas haparnosa. Even such a person, the pasuk that says, "Inegam hatirdas la yuchlu lechabes chas v'sholem as ha'ava ha'mesuteres shebekol echad miYisrael." Even these preoccupations will not be able to extinguish, God forbid, that hidden love that each one has. So the hidden love that we have, each one possesses, notwithstanding that he is preoccupied, he has tirdas haparnosa, and yet the person remains strong with his ava, the ava mesuteres. So the Rebbe is going to explain. So the Rebbe explained now that why does he say tirdas parnosa? It is because really a person should not be preoccupied with parnosa if he makes a true cheshbon, because he knows that everything comes from Hashem, and it's just a garment of nature which he uses to give him through that, but it's bracha, so he shouldn't really be preoccupied. But this person is preoccupied, and still the pasuk says the love that a person has inherited is not shaken, is not overflooded, it's not extinguished, even though he has these tirdas. Now the Rebbe is going to say that the Mayim Rabim, these great waters and these distractions, actually have a very high root. And it almost seems like they come from such a high place. Maybe they should be able to detract from the neshama. And the answer is that the neshama comes even from a higher place. It's in a higher place. So even the Mayim Rabim that come from a spiritual high level, yet the person's neshama is even on a higher level. Gimel. Hine hachidush bazeh shemayim rabim lo yuchlu lechabes es ha'ava. What is the novelty? What's so great about this idea that the Mayim Rabim cannot extinguish the love? When we learn about where the level of Mayim Rabim comes from and where the neshama comes from, and we will see that there's a chiddush that even though the Mayim Rabim are great, they can't extinguish love. The Yodua, because it's known, the Shoyresh HaMayim Rabim, the root of these great waters, tirdas haparnosa, where does it come from? The worries, the preoccupation with the livelihood by the person who bibchinas hatoyu shekoidem litikun. That is the level of chaos, the world of toyu, which is before tikkun, before the world of Atzilus before correction. So it's chaos before correction. Because it's Toyu, because unity begins in Atzilus in Tikkun. Before over there is separations. That's why there's Rabim. The Zehu Shenikroim Mayim Rabim. That's why we call them the many waters. Liyoisam Rabim Gam Mitzad Shorshum Mekorim, because there are many also from the perspective of the root and the source, because the source of the Mayim Rabim is Toyu. So over there's also the level of Rabim. So that's why it's Mayim Rabim. This is the Chiddush. Mayim Rabim lo Yוכלו לכבות האהבה ונהרות lo ישטפוה. This is the Chiddush, that these great waters cannot extinguish the love, and the rivers cannot flood it. Although the root of the Mayim Rabim, v'hanahores, hu b'bchinas hatoyu shekoidem l'tikun, that's in the level of toyu, that is before tikun, which is shoydesh nefesh elikis. The nefesh elikis is tikun, and the Mayim Rabim are toyu. Toyu is greater than tikun. It comes before tikkun. So turns out the Mayim Rabim are higher than the Nefesh Halikis. Mikol Makoim lo Yוכלו לכבות chas v'shalom, and still, even though they have such a high root, they cannot extinguish, God forbid, as ha'ava shebenefesh halikis, the love that is in the nefesh halikis. They can't extinguish that, even though they are from Toyu, and the neshama is only from Tikkun, which is lower than Toyu, which comes after Toyu. Batam lo zehu. And what is the reason? Hakam taka, they can't not distract. Ukamesha kosu lifneze is like it says in the pasuk before, Rishofeho rishpei eis shalheves yutke. That the sparks of the love of the neshama is sparks of fire. The neshama has the flame of Yudke in it. It's a tremendous level, that love, that Shalheves Yudke, that flame of Hashem, which is the sparks of a fire, which is in the neshama, is actually higher than Tikkun. It comes actually all the ways from Atzmus Ein Sof. Sheshoidesh haneshama va'ava mesuteres shabo, the root of the neshama and the love, hidden love, is not like we said before, only in Tikkun, but the root of the neshama and the hidden love that's in the neshama, who be'atzmus Ein Sof shalamaylo gam mebchinas toyu, which is even higher than the level of toyu. So in truth is the neshama has a higher source, higher than its root in Tikkun, but it has a source in Atzmus Ein Sof, which is even higher than Toyu, than the Mayim Rabim. Why? So he says like this: you have like a flintstone. It's brought down in Chassidus. They bring down the mashal. You have a flintstone. Flintstone is that when you bang it, you get a spark out of it. Now you can have a flintstone soaking in water. It's not going to extinguish the fire that's in there. Still, you take it out of the water. Why? Because that spark is so deep in the rock. It's not a revealed level of a flame. It comes very, very deep within the rock. And also, when you have a coal, you don't see the flame outside. It's hidden within the coal. Basically, the love of a yid is like the coal, and it's like the flintstone. That's why it cannot be extinguished, because it comes very deep. It comes from Atzmus. Let's look inside. Shoidesh Sheshayrish ha'ava shebenefesh ha'likis. The root of the love which is in the godly soul, hu bechinas shalheves yudke. That is a flame of yudke, a flame of Hashem. Kimoi shehi kishura ugenuza begachelas. At the level, it's a flame as it's tied and hidden in a coal. That's why it's called rishpei. Rishpei eish are sparks of fire which are in the coal. It's not a revealed. So the shalheves yudke, this flame, is from the level of the kodesh peish. Ulamaila yosef, and even higher than just the coal. Kamoshu b'bechina sur. That's like in a rock, like in a flintstone. Shalemaila mehavaya, which is higher in level of Havaya. Sheshom hu shoydesh haneshama. Over there is the root of the neshama. So the reason why the flood waters, which are toyu, root in toyu, cannot extinguish the neshama is because the love of the neshama is very deeply connected. It's like a gacheles, and higher it's like a tsur, it's like a coal, it's like a flintstone, which is higher than Havaya. And there is the shoydesh of the neshama, because Havaya would be a revealed level. This is inside the flintstone, which is the root of the neshama. K'mevur b'lekutei Torah, b'pirush hakosuf, as explained in Lekutei Torah, explained the pasuk about ruach toshuv el halikim asher nisana. So it says the spirit, the person goes down to the ground, and the spirit of the person returns to Elikim Asher Nisana. So where is the level Elikim Asher Nisana? Shebechinas Elikim Asher Nisana, says the Alter Rebbe in Lekutei Torah, Ubechinas Sur Hanal. That's like that flintstone, that very, very deep level of Elikim, and that's where the love connects to the level of the Tzur. And that's why it's such a higher place. So the Rebbe explained over here that even though the Maim Rabim come from a high level, from the level of Toyu, but still the Shoresh of the Neshama, while it comes from Tikkun, but the root of it, of that love, is rooted in the highest level in Atzmus Ein Sof, and this is the level of Tzur, and that is the reason why they cannot extinguish the love of Hashem. The Rebbe is going to now explain that not only does it not extinguish, but actually these challenges, the Maim Rabim, make the person even higher. But that we will leave for next time.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll see you soon.